So this video addresses the recreation of the dire wolf by a company called Colossal. So Colossal is a company which is heavily backed by both scientists who are employed or founders, co-founders, but also especially a lot of investors. This is like Jurassic Park, but then for the real world. And they say they have recreated the dire wolf. The dire wolf was an enormously big wolf, like we also know the prehistoric lions, prehistoric sloths, prehistoric bear. I think that was the prehistoric sloth was a giant sloth, and the prehistoric bear was the whole bear, I guess. But the dire wolf was a lot bigger than a normal wolf. But what did they do? They used the genome of the grey wolf, which is the biggest wolf currently living, and they changed some parts of it. They shifted that and manipulated that so that they would look the same as that of the dire wolf. The dire wolf is a completely different species, so it's not compatible with the grey wolf per se as a whole, but also in scientific lab they have used some human genes into, for example, mice, or they use bacterial genes into mice or something else, for example, to make them translucent or to make them glow in the dark. So the dire wolf, they have created two, Remus and Romulus, at the beginning, and a third following that. They look great, but they are more of a white type of grey wolf, and they also looked, the scientists, to use white wolves that were specifically diluted so that they have less chances of becoming deaf. As in dogs, a lot of all white animals have a higher chance, a higher predisposition to become deaf. So they use a different color dilution so that normally this would not occur. Of course, they made such an investment into the wolves and they want to have the best experience possible. But Colossal says the following regarding what I say. There's just a variation of the regular wolf. They say this: we aren't trying to bring something back that's 100% genetically identical to another species. Our goal with de-extinction, so animals go extinct, and with de-extinction you could bring them back, is always create functional copies of these extinct species. So also in that word, wolves are still living, so they are functional and they just altered to a degree. That was my note. So we continue with the quote: we are focusing on identifying variants that we knew would lead to one of these key traits. And that they used that information from their genetic analysis to alter grey wolf cells. They made 20 edits in 14 genes before cloning the most promising cell lines and transferring them into donor eggs from domestic dogs. So in other words, they used domestic dog as a donor for the egg, but they used wolf DNA, so the domestic dog egg was completely empty out, and they used wolf DNA of the grey wolf to insert into that. So it's just a vessel, the domestic dog, because then the domestic dog could also easier, complete the gestation period and to deliver those puppies. But that genetic wolf DNA was altered on some parts with dire wolf. And with the domestic dog and the nurture part, so you have nature, the genetic code. The genetic code is more of the grey wolf, which is a wild animal. The dire wolf is also, of course, a wild animal. But the nurture side is that of the dog, because the dog raises them and also had the gestation. Up till now, Colossal has raised 435 million. And you can imagine with successes as with this dire wolf, but at least to a degree altered wolves with some dire wolf genetic code in them, they are easily gaining a lot more money. And since Colossal was only founded in 2021, so it's only 4 years old, September 2001, so 3.5 years, they did a tremendous job at getting a lot of money. And this also gives them a lot of news coverage, so it's a lot of public relations that are benefited to get additional funding rounds in. So, to summarize, it carries dire wolf genes. It's in the grey wolf genome, and these genes make it look more like a dire wolf than anything we've seen in the last 30,000 years, and that's very cool. Colossal states. The genotype is not that of the dire wolf. They state that they have resurrected the dire wolf phenotype. So the genotypes are the genomes, and the phenotypes is how they get to their expression. So, for example, my genetic code might be quite a lot resembling that of my brother, but phenotyped expression, for example, perhaps I'm a little bit taller than my brother. That's something else. Also, some facial features that might be different. Could also have a different eye color, for example. So those three traits are more of the phenotype, the expression of the genome. I hope this sheds some light onto the matter, and wishing you a great day. Out.